mixed crowd that we have, and happy to hear any questions and clarify anything towards the end of the session. So let's get started. Venkatesh, could you move to the first slide? Okay. So I'm sure this will resonate with every one of y'all, especially in the lockdown period. This is one company that's kind of been signing lot of big business deals. But if you think about it, why is this one company that's actually signing up so many of these partnerships given the times and circumstances that we are, right? I think Geo resembles to a very, very important point that this company and this company and data is that new oil, right? So big data continues to get bigger and extremely important strategy. The CMO is no longer harnessed with the typical marketing aspects, but it's making sense of more and more data, more data than ever before. But what is the most single important factor that marketers need to keep in mind before they launch their product or they're planning to develop something new or even branch out into something that is completely different? It's that customer value proposition. So, and what is that? If you see the slide, consumers have moved in the way they've been consuming services, consuming products, and this behavior continuously changes. So what is this value proposition, right? It sounds quite fancy. Value proposition actually is nothing, but it's the value that your business can actually provide to your customers. It's a combination of the value and the products and services that you have to offer, and how is this actually solving the need of a consumer. And it's not just that it provides something different or something of value, but it also is extremely important because it's actually the foundation of how your entire business model could work. And I think it's one example of how and what I'm actually speaking about and how this value can actually be created. So the 4 key pillars, some of you might already know this, might have read about this. The 4 pillars to creating this value proposition is who this person is, what are their current problems, what is the solution that you and your business is going to solve for this customer and their current problems, and how are you going to differentiate amongst the others towards the solution, right? So while this all sounds very, very simple, I'm just kind of put something together to kind of make you understand this a little better. Slide, please. Yeah. So the customer, right? The customer could be anyone. It could be a group of people. It could be a particular kind of person, right? So whoever this customer is, who is that person? That's extremely important to identify, because everything starts from here. An identification of a wrong customer could kind of collapse everything else that we're going to be talking in the next few slides, right? So if you see here, the customer, right? But we do not know what the problem of this customer is, right? It could be multiple, it could be single, right? Presentation. Let's assume that this person wants to move from where she is to where she wants to go. So from one point to another point. Next slide, please. And what is the solution that already exists in the ecosystem, right? There could be a bridge that's connecting from point A to point B, but maybe that bridge is not so strong. It's just enough to take this person from point A to point B. And how are you going to differentiate yourself to what the current solution is? So maybe the bridge is probably more stronger, right? However, what is actually very key and what's actually very important, and I think what most marketers miss, is while all these pillars are identified at the beginning of starting a business, starting a product, they all tend to forget, right? Because they're so busy in the whole midst of funnel marketing and other jargons in marketing that they forget about that customer. Because what's very key is value proposition does not necessarily stay the same right at the very beginning, because the customer and the customer's needs, and especially now, is evolving, right? The customer changes, the needs of this customer, in fact, changes. The way the person has been absorbing or getting involved and evolved in these services are changing, and hence it becomes very, very important for businesses to change along with this changing behavior. Because if the value proposition continues to remain the same and the behaviors are changing, it's definitely not going to have any fitment, right? So can you go to the next slide? And exactly this is the next slide, because the customer who probably was pretty much used to going on foot is now wanting to travel in a car. And now, because that person is now traveling in a car, the behavior has changed and now is moving from point A to point B, and hence the need of a better bridge, right? So this is the and hence the whole point of having and understanding your customers and having them and understanding their behaviors even more closely than ever before becomes extremely key, especially in today's time when we talk about value proposition. More so, this differentiation is extremely important, because in a business, if we are not able to differentiate ourselves, our customers will only tend to move to the lowest price provider. And once that happens, that's actually a sign where your customers don't see any value in what you're offering. And then any kind of growth is pretty much going to be unsustainable, right? So value, of course, becomes very important. And hence it's, of course, is established that the benefits of this differentiation, which is part of your value proposition, becomes very important, because your business wins, you win profitably, your win is consistent, and it's definitely not for a short time. And this is only possible because you're understanding your consumers consistently, and communicating the value of what you have to offer to them. But while all this is simple, probably we know about it, it's actually very difficult. It's difficult because if tomorrow you go to your company and say, okay, let's do our customer value proposition and let's do this and let's do that, you're going to be having very similar problems that they will all crop and throw up at you, right? They will. Most of our marketers, some of the marketers will say that they don't have the time to collect this data about these consumers. The product marketer or the product in charge will say that they don't have the right skills to do this. Some companies would say that we don't have the money to collate all this data, right? Because as marketers, it's a time where all this kind of data on consumers and consumers' behaviors used to be done only through research, right? And consumer research, the data used to come, by the time it used to get understood, absorbed, actually a product is launched, a lot of time is actually lost, because by the time a product is launched, the consumer's behavior has now changed. The purchasing power has changed. And because of this disconnect, if you see the problems are going, if you're not in an organization or if your business is not set up in an agile manner, reacting to these consumers' expectations is going to be extremely difficult. And that brings me to the next point, right? The fifth pillar of this value proposition is nothing but data, right? You're only possible to kind of use this information only if you're collecting that amount of data. And if you actually see, if you kind of rearrange these words, these alphabets of data, it gives you that's your secret recipe to how you can kind of launch your product, or at least plan on how you can kind of launch something different for your consumer. So I've kind of picked up the latest, brands that we have all associated ourselves in the recent past, right? Whether it's Amazon, Facebook, WhatsApp, have something in common. All have been collecting data, and that's not it. They've been consistently working and adding value with this data, right? So most of us would actually think that, these are tech companies and technology strong companies. But if you actually see, they're not just technology strong. They are strong because of the data that they have been collecting and working on that data. Any example of these brands which I've put up, they've all evolved from where they started. They've changed their value proposition. Amazon from selling just books today is selling pretty much everything that's required, including the payment, which is something that you can do with your Amazon Pay. So this is now pretty much into the financial space as well. WhatsApp, a simple messaging service, so easy to use for any age type, is now moving. Facebook, so much of data has been monetizing this data, right? Similarly with Uber, a company that kind of is into taking you from one place to the other, just like a taxi was at some point also delivering food. So if you see, all these companies have been keeping technology and data in front, have done immense work on starting a new business, starting and offering a different value only because they've been collecting. Okay, so pretty much over here, the reason why I've kind of taken these companies is to show you that these companies are not something that, I mean, of course we use them, but they have evolved from their current customer value proposition to what they actually offer now. Right from Amazon, where it used to probably just sell books, is now into to selling pretty much everything. And it's also now moved into payments because you can now use your Amazon Pay and actually pay. Similarly with WhatsApp, a simple messaging service is now into payments. Uber, Uber was also at some point in, of course now it's been taken over, but had also branched out into Uber Eats. It is that while all these companies might be technology extremely forward, but the key was that they were utilizing data, they were collecting data, utilizing and consistently using the data to offer value proposition to their customers. So what do actually most of these companies ask themselves, right? Before they're diversifying into another product, or before they are improving their current product, right? The first questions that they would ask themselves is, what is the data I have today? What is the data that I can get? And what am I going to use of that data? Am I going to use it to better my current service? Is it going to give me an edge over my competition? Or am I going to sell that? All of it has monies and some amount of revenue involved in it. But in today's ecosystem, this data is vast. There's a lot of data, right? There's a lot of data that consumers are sharing, and there's a lot of data that businesses are also collecting, right? So right from your websites to the applications, to forms, to what you are sharing on Google, to what you're saying on any of the apps, all of it has a lot of data in different forms, right? But the customer is in the center. So the customer is, of course, on your social pages and sharing something because it's appreciating something or it's engaging with you. At the other side, it could be talking to your call center and must be really upset about something. At the same time, the customer has also given you information on your website because it's buying something, or using your application because, again, it's interacting with you, right? There's a lot of information, but what we're going to do now is, how are we going to actually collect all this kind of information? How are we going to put some sense into this to design that customer value proposition for your business? Yep, Venki, to the next slide, please. So I've kind of just made this a little simple. Is what are the common data points that can be collected? Of course, this changes from business to business depending on what they actually have to offer. But primarily, there are 4 aspects, right? There's personal data. Personal data is nothing but data that is identifiable and extremely personal to you, right? Something like an email address or a phone number. Okay, it's exclusive to you, and we also call this as PII, which is personal identifiable information. So this is something that is personal to you, and that point or that data point only and only can be associated. But along with personal data, there's a lot of unidentifiable data as well. What is unidentifiable data? Data that we kind of, browse websites. I mean, this data is collected in the form of a cookie. The phone that we use, right? A lot of location data, a lot of device ID, IP addresses are all information that has also been shared, and that identifies you as some persona in that whole world. The other data that businesses collect is usually engagement data. What is the kind of interaction of the consumer on your website or on your mobile, on the application, or on the social media pages, right? Do they like your content? Are they interacting with you? Are they participating with you? Are you keeping them engaged enough? Or what are the customer service routes that they have tried to reach out to you at any point in time? Behavioral data. Now, this data is, of course, very, very important to any business because it's transactional data. It's also data that kind of tells you the value of this purchase, and how frequent is that information also used. And of course, there is actually, it's nothing but the data that is usually collected to understand the happiness score of your consumer, right? Are they really happy with your current process? Are they really dissatisfied about it? Can we do something better? Through surveys or through your NPS scores and things like that. I think I just saw a chat message. Is that IP address? IP address is not PII information. I'm sorry if I might say that. It comes under unidentifiable data. Now all this data that has been collected, right? How could it be used? The first most important thing is to do something with the data for your own business, right? To improve your customer experience. It can be used to improve website functionalities, to make it a little bit more easier for consumers. If you know that a particular customer comes frequently, maybe every month, and orders a fixed list of groceries, maybe that he kind of checks out even faster. For something for any OTA, if they identify that this kind of consumer usually comes and he always pays through his credit card, or is always ordering for is always taking a flight and a hotel package, or in a flight, or in a hotel, he's always looking for a luxury hotel. You kind of offer this upfront to the consumer so that he's not discovering the platform again and again, and just kind of pushing him into the funnel much faster. The second way our data can be used is marketing strategies, right? Segmentation, right? Can you kind of segment certain for them something that is more of value and more value to them, right? Can you personalize this content to them? If it could be a different weather condition, or if it is depending on the kind of profile or some cohort that you can kind of, how can you kind of personalize this information to those users? You can also use this data for prediction, right? What are the kind of users who are likely to purchase this product again? Or who are the kind of people who are likely to take that holiday again this year? I mean, are they the ones who take a holiday once in a year, or do they do at least take a holiday at least 2 times a year? And also can also help you to prevent churn. So in case you've seen that a certain set of your consumers have been very active, but of late they have not been active for whatever reason, is there something that you can kind of do to them and kind of only segment them out and kind of add something that is more value to them, so that they kind of get engaged with you and your business just as they were at some point in time? Data can also be used for monetization, right? Yes. Depending on the purchase history that they have with you, you've got a lot of data, right? You could kind of use it for cross-selling something, or even cross-sell something that you're planning to introduce very soon, because you know that they are your premium set of consumers and they have been purchasing some premium products. Will they then definitely purchase something else that you sell? Is a great way to cross-sell to these, to get a sense of their behavior towards your new product. And of course, what kind of product usage? Are they repeatedly buying these products, or maybe once in a, it's just a seasonal thing, once in a year kind of an aspect? And how can you also use data to secure yourself and your company, right? Today, very commonly, voice has been established and used to kind of prevent fraud, prevent hacking of certain accounts. And that's also one of the ways on how can data be actually used for your business. And because of all of this data, right, a lot of companies and a lot of businesses have also started a lot of loyalty programs. And now, because of this data, they are able to create a program out of it, so that it wins. It's a win-win proposition for the consumer. But creating a loyalty program is easy. May not be easy for some, may be very easy for some. But what's actually very key, it definitely needs a lot of strategic planning. It needs a well-planned approach. And what's very, very important is that there has to be a conjunction with all the customer data points that your business is collecting. Because if that merge is not there, then again, you're in that same state with all the information. The most key is, while you'll have a lot of data, but having all your systems and the conjunction of all these customer data points that is collected through different spots is required to kind of all merge together. And how is all this done? It sounds easy. It could be very, very difficult. But I've kind of created something that's really small to kind of help you understand this a little better. So, CRM, DMP, CDP. Okay. What's CRM? CRM is nothing but it's your customer relation management software. It's a software that actually collects information one-on-one. Okay, it's one of the low-cost must-have, in my opinion, for any business that is collecting data. Right? However small you are, extremely critical to keep all that information in one place. It's nothing but like like a directory where you have a lot of information of everybody's phone numbers in one place, right? And you're having phone numbers, you'll be having email IDs, and of course any kind of transactional data that they might have. So CRM is extremely critical and very low cost to have. Secondly is it's usually done to store information that is your identifiable information, which is your personal data, your one-on-one connect data, which is like your email ID and your phone number. However, like I mentioned to you in my earlier slide, the data can also be collected in the form of a cookie, which is non-identifiable. And hence, where can I store this? This can't be stored in a CRM of sorts, right? For this, you need something like a DMP. Like I was saying, to kind of create and kind of have all these data points and your data systems together, there are three fundamental aspects which in my opinion can kind of get you there. Is your CRM. CRM is nothing but your customer relationship management software. This is nothing but your most fundamental asset where you can kind of store all your PII information, which is your one-on-one communication, right? Very low cost and extremely critical as a starting point for any business. However, like I mentioned to you in my earlier slide, there's also something that we said that was an unidentifiable data, like your cookie ID, right? Which can't actually get stored in a CRM, because in a CRM, it's a one-on-one communication software. So for something like that, there is something called DMP, which is nothing but a data management platform, which primarily helps you optimize any kind of your advertising that you plan to do. To give you an example, if I have users coming to my website, right, and I know the kind of people who have come, but they have not kind of logged in or given me anything that I'm able to identify them, right? But they come to my website, they browsed, they checked out some prices, and they left my website. How do I contact this guy again? That's when you can kind of use a DMP, because a DMP, your data management platform, helps you to target only those customers who could have come to your website. It also gives you other extremely smart aspects, right? You could create something like a lookalike of these people who have come to your website. So a user who has come to your website, browsed, or even who has purchased. And if you want more people like that, these smart aspects which you could use. But it, of course, also requires a little bit of investment. And now businesses are moving into something which is called the CDP. The CDP is nothing but your customer data platform, which actually is nothing but it's an advanced mechanism that kind of meshes both your CRM data and data, right? So information that is identifiable, non-identifiable, you're able to kind of create this whole persona. You know where he has come, when he has come, did he purchase, not purchase, everything in one place. That makes it extremely easy for marketers to kind of make a little bit more, smarter, roll out smarter aspects of communications or marketing or even product development for that matter, a little bit more smartly. So I've kind of put this, and that's pretty much what the ideal state looks like today in data, right? We have the CRM, which mainly stores your PI information. Then you have a DMP, and of course, then you have your CDP as a layer. DMP has pretty much been in the industry for maybe about 5 to 6 years, primarily used by a lot of companies, especially who are advertising online. And it's mainly done because they want to optimize the spends or optimize their targeting that they do, right? So in my ads to everybody, I want to show my ads to only a selected few. I want to show my ads only to the probable list of customers who are most likely to buy my product, right? And hence a DMP helps you to do that. And of course, the CDP, like I said, is not a mesh of both these two systems. Still evolving to kind of push and kind of create this whole customer data management profile, so that it kind of gives you a unified view of the customer that you're actually targeting. Yeah. So let's see a few examples. Like taken a few examples which probably all of us know. So I said, let's take an example of Starbucks, perfect for the day, at least here in Mumbai. How does Starbucks operate? You go to Starbucks, you purchase frequently. Every time you purchase, they offer you some free drinks and free food because of your loyalty towards the brand. Because they've collected your information, they offer you something special on your birthday, so that makes you feel even more great. Apart, and in fact, they kind of do this really, really well because they actually celebrate your birthday and they actually offer you something great. Unlike a lot of other companies who just say happy birthday and that's about it, they don't really add any value. They don't make you feel special. Starbucks also kind of gives you exclusive member events and offers. In fact, what they do really smartly is that if you purchase on through their app, through the Starbucks app, they actually reward you with more points, right? They reward you with more points, and you kind of get more rewards, and that's another accelerated way of getting more points. Another way to be in touch very, very often with the brand. Because you kind of also share your information with them, they send you emails, they send you notifications, which are of course very, very personalized. Now, what are the data points that they could be using, right? Yeah, the data point that they could be leveraging is of course on your purchase, right? How often do you purchase? What's the value of your purchase? Do you purchase only the coffee? Do you purchase the Java? Do you purchase the cold coffee? Do you always take a combo? Do you take a combo of a coffee and a cookie or a meal? The location that you are actually ordering this coffee from, very, very key, right? Is it your home residence? Is it something that is close to your office? Is it always a pickup? Your device, from where your device ID, very, very important again. What's the financial information that they have about you? Could be having about you. Do you always purchase on the card? Do you use a wallet to actually purchase or anything of that sort? And of course, what's the demographic of people purchasing this coffee? Again, very important. It helps them to kind of build on their menu. Is it the college type who's purchasing this coffee? Is it the entrepreneur type? Is it somebody else? These kind of attributes, if you see your data attributes, is nothing but helping different stages of a business. Demographic data will actually help maybe the food and beverage department to understand what are the kind of consumers who are coming, what exactly on the menu, vis-a-vis what was probably actually there before. And if you see this company closely, they are evolving their value proposition very, very often, right? And that's what they're changing consumers, changing consumer behavior patterns only demands that change in value proposition, and that's what they're kind of doing. For another example, Venki, if you can go to the next slide. A lot of loyalty programs, airline loyalty programs, right? They have some kind of amount of data, and how are they kind of using this data, right? To kind of make it a little bit more seamless for the consumer. Personalization of communication, emails or SMSs, also kind of helps you and tells you how far you are from moving to the next year. Like you are just so many miles or points shorter from going to this next stage. And if you reach this stage, you will get this and you will get that, right? It helps you to move faster. Segmenting of these offers. Certain, if you know that there are certain elite customers who demand or who want something different, you can segment an offer only exclusively for them because you're adding value to them, of course. So again, that's value proposition to that segment of users. And of course, it's destination content. What is the kind of content that you can kind of give these users? So I was saying that segmenting of these offers, and of course, providing really, really relevant content to these users. If they like to go to beach destinations or like to go to tourist destinations, like to go to historical destinations, how can you kind of personalize and kind of give that kind of content? And content not just related to your business, but something very lateral. What are the things that you could do there? What are the best reviewed places? What are the places you should not miss when you go to these places? That are all something that consumers thrive for and see value in getting that information from you, right? Venki, to the next slide, please. Yeah. So the last slide, I think I've spoken quite a bit, but very, very key takeaways. While we've kind of put off all these aspects, whether it's your CDP, your CRM, your DMP, and your pillars of your value proposition, what's actually very key is combining the energy of your entire organization, because this information is going to be collected not from one department. It's going to be collected from various touch points that your customer actually interacts with. Customer experience, because you need all this information coming together, and then you need to kind of create magic with this data for that consumer. So you really need to have that seamless customer experience, creation of consistent and engaging and personalized content. Something that a user is not going to relate with is something that he's not going to find value. It's like, okay, this is just not meant for me. Let me just chunk it out, right? So creating that consistent and personalized content is extremely key. Mashing and centralizing all of this data in one place. Having data in different systems is not good enough at all. It doesn't help you with anything, because you're spending more time actually making sense of the data instead of rolling something out for the customer. Representatives, right? How at various departments or various touch points can this data actually be used? It could be used for cross-selling. Training your customer service representatives is also very, very key. Monitoring the success of this as part of your customer life cycle is also very, very key. Your customer could be, and all businesses go through a certain life stage and a life cycle. So customer one stage, that's very important to keep in mind, because that's the only way where all this is going to actually be actually put to use. And is that team that you have is actually committed to make that data-driven process a reality? So that's extremely, of course, also key, because it's, like I said, it's not very easy, but you need that right team and the gelling of that team to actually make that magic happen. So I think that's pretty much from my side, but if we can take, I think there were a few questions. Look at that, Venki, so that we can address all of that. And if there's something that was not very clear, apologies for that, but maybe we can go to that piece again.
Yeah, I think, So before we try and, so I think it's a very interesting discussion which we have had. Thanks, Beverly. One of the things which I had in my mind before, we should discuss about it is the concept of MDP, DMP, and CDP, and it's a very interesting concept. Now, obviously, we've been working in corporates and multinationals, so we get a sense of it. But when we talk to an entrepreneur who is maybe around 100 CR business or a 250 or less than a 250 CR business, and I see most of these DMPs and CDPs as a process or as an initiative done definitely in a larger set of organization or larger branch. So from an MSME or an SME perspective, how do we actually look at this? Like, for example, today when we talk about data, definitely nobody buys an IBM Watson as a service, for delivering things, because not only it is expensive, but it is also the need versus, actually the requirement versus the, purchase of that particular infrastructure or a resource. So, is it something that we as SME should talk to the advertising agency or the digital agency who work with them, ask them specifically that, I need to be using some applications through DMP and CDP, and will that be a better way of, going ahead in that curve? Or is there anything as a software where like a Tally kind of a thing, or any kind of a application where SMEs could really try this out? So
yeah,
your views on that?
Yeah, so I understand the concern. In my opinion, the DMP, of course, right? So there's a lot of DMP that are already existing where you can utilize this data, right? So you have the Blue Guys, you have the Lotame, where these companies actually store data. So there's data that is kind of already there in that ecosystem, and they've already clustered themselves and say that this is the set of people who, there are consumers who are luxury travelers, right? Or these are people who are e-com purchasers, or retail purchasers. So there's already this kind of cohort of data already existing in the ecosystem, because a lot of these data collectors or providers, like we call them, already have this data with them. In my opinion, I would never suggest that you can use this data, but however, whoever comes to your website, you have invested in that customer, right? And because you have invested in that customer, that data is very, very important for you, right? But collecting this data for your business is extremely important for you, because that is proprietary to you, right? And hence, in my opinion, your entire data collection aspect. A lot of other, I guess Google also offers a very free service, which doesn't cost much. Of course, because it's free, it doesn't give you accuracy. But for SMEs, in my opinion, you guys could just start with a simple Google Analytics code on your website, and you have something like a tag manager which kind of collects all these audiences. All you have to do is segment all these audiences, and then hence you can use it for marketing. The only thing is that the data collected in Google can only be used on Google advertising platforms. You can't match it with another platform, and hence it depends on your vision on how you want to do that. So, like I said, my advice would be your information, your website, your application information should stay with you, because you can do magic, and nobody, and the agency, I don't think, in my opinion, will kind of do that magic.
Interesting. So that is a next question. I'm just trying to top all the questions now. This is a question from Shivakumar. He says, what are the key drivers to make such program as a profit center for smaller brands that are not primarily into the B2C business, especially the smaller business units that are not catering to the FMCG retail marketing brand? So typically, I believe we might be referring to how do we actually leverage such platforms for a B2B, and what are the key success drivers for that?
So B2B businesses is also, from a data collection perspective, it's pretty much similar, right? It's your business, and what are the data points that what you could collect and what you can collect. Now, once you have this data, I mean, there is some information that you can use, or some information that you can kind of use for your benefit to the customer, because you're in partnership with another business. To give you an example, if I was maybe a software company, right? I have a software, and I have a software for a certain set of people. And I know that this software is very, very often downloaded and, of course, used, because I'm kind of offering it for free in the business. And maybe you know that once the software, it's expired, or it kind of gets into a different stage in the life cycle, and maybe if you do not want to be in that stage of actually creating it, maybe you can tie up with that other company and actually create some kind of a tie-up where you are exchanging this information with him, and you are both combining, creating, and having a data exchange, so that there is a benefit for both businesses to kind of gain, and of course the customer not being completely annoyed. That's right, Ankur. Even the Facebook analytics tag is very, very useful. But in my opinion, Facebook, because it's a closed aspect, Facebook only helps you to collect information of people who are on Facebook, but especially on Gmail, and it's also used for a lot of businesses. So I would suggest to kind of use both Facebook and Facebook as well as Google Analytics is free. So Analytics is seamless. But again, if you're kind of using these two things differently, it's good for a start. It's good to kind of give you a flavor, kind of introduce you to the process. But again, meshing data between these two is going to be an impossible task.
There are a couple of questions from students. Okay, let me start with the first question. Okay, Nagpavan, okay, not from the student though. Mr. Nagpavan is asking, how can IP address personal IP address, that is personal identification data, since it changes every time the device connects? Okay, he's asking, why does the IP address change every time you connect the device to an internet service provider?
Okay, so I'm not the best and not the expert on this.
Let me answer that. So there are two types of IP. There is something known as a private IP and something known as a public IP. So whenever you connect to the internet service provider, and if you don't have a private IP, so it is like, you taking a bus, which is a private bus. So whenever you stand in the bus stop, whichever the bus comes, you pick up and take the bus, because that goes to your destination. Or you probably pick up your Maruti, Uber, or anything, which is your private owned thing, which you book it, and you can actually tell that person to come every time. So that's the only difference. So in a private IP, you will get a seamless uplink and downlink faster. The data is much more secured. Whereas in a public IP, it is still secure, but the comfort levels are less. And that's the best way to understand what is the difference between a public IP and a private IP. Is that okay, Mr. Nagpavan? So then we could probably talk about other technical activities maybe sometime later. But just to understand, the reason it changes is because you use a public IP, and it doesn't change when you use a private IP. That's about it. Okay, so the next question is from, for a student who wants to career in marketing using work What are the knowledge expectations? More marketing or more technology? So the current situation, what is your view, Beverly? Is it more marketing knowledge or more technology knowledge?
So, in my opinion, the CMO is now he is this person who handles marketing has to be technology driven, must have knowledge of technology, and of course data analytics. So if you see, it's a mesh of all three. In isolation, today businesses are not run like they used to a few years back or many years ago. These departments are collaborating and actually understanding each other's and each other's departments more on the technical side, and hence it's very, very difficult to choose between two. But I would guess, just like myself, marketing evolving into technology and now data, you definitely need to have to kind of create that secret sauce for your business.
Okay, so that is one. Then IP address we have spoken about. I think. Okay, I think that's one question which we want to understand from you, which is also I'm curious. Any case study on the JET privilege program which happened earlier? So the idea, the question is more to do with not with JET, as a airline industry, why was this whole idea of a privilege program started? And that was actually JET started almost 20 years ago. And I think Air India also tried to adopt it, if I'm not wrong. And a lot of other companies, I see the new Tata Vista, Singapore collaboration, Vistara, sorry. The Vistara also tries it, but and there are a lot of these loyalty programs that happen all across the corner in the more shops and all of these retail chains of network. So during the course, when now in the last 3-4 years, especially when I'm talking in India, there has been a complete explosion on data and a lot of things are happening. But Jet started long time ago with the classic golden and silver card, and it was like a very premium thing to carry with it. So what was that? What was that during that time? And I'm just asking out of curiosity, what could have been those thought processes when they started using with I don't know whether the computers were used then or they still had some data functioning or some kind of a data set to work on. So the story on that, more importantly than the current situation today.
Okay, so I don't want to disappoint you guys, but I'm not in a position to talk much of. But definitely, what I've actually put together in this presentation is something that you guys can definitely use, right? Why Jet? Look at Amazon Prime today. Look at Shopper Stop before. Like I gave you the example of Starbucks or any other program. Because of so much of information and data, everybody's trying to kind of make it a little bit more smarter so that it works to their advantage. So no specific case study, but at least for now. But yeah, whatever I've kind of put in the slide is all something that is something that anybody in business, new business or diversifying business could definitely implement.
So any other questions? I think one of the questions which I wanted to ask after this was maybe two important customer loyalty initiatives what MSMEs can look at, one from a B2B perspective, one from a B2C perspective, using technology which is available or an application which is available, or possibly, without an application, 2-3 mantras for building a customer relationship marketing program or a structure.
Yeah. So all of this, of course, depends on data. So you definitely have to invest in something that's very, very important to kind of collect this data. So technology is definitely something that needs to back you up. Automation is the second most thing. Most of these technologies definitely have automation back with them, because automation is key to help you scale and grow. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty much unsustainable. There is really so much that you can kind of do manually, and also because things are moving in real time. You're getting real-time information, real-time location information because of the app, because of any kind of app that you might have built for your company. And because you want to kind of drive these real-time triggers, automation is definitely key. So from my side, technology definitely needs to back you up. And kind of you need to have a good is combining all this data to kind of give you these insights and kind of prevent you from any kind of problems that could kind of erupt, but what you can kind of course correct soon enough before it becomes a problem.
So I think the one more question was on the B2B. How do we understand data from understand B2B customer behavior? So that's one thing. Do share. And I actually wanted to know one very interesting thing, because the cost is one of the key areas of concern for an MSME today. If you see the cost, and and this is a deterrent actually, and I don't deny that, because we work with a lot of MSMEs. It's a deterrent. Now, with your experience in the entire marketing, so from an ROI perspective, and what kind of ROI we should look at when we start working on a CRM kind of an initiative for a company, and because that actually works a lot for any MSME to actually invest in the money. So any sense of what you could give you a sense of what kind of ROIs which happen in large companies, and obviously it may not be the same because the data, the actual activities, because of the number of data. So what kind of ROIs do you look at? If we can peg or target, if you have to really build these infrastructure and the resources.
Yeah. So see, most of these technologies, like you rightly said, are of course expensive, right? But quite a few are also evolving, and most of them have now also moved on a model, right? So once you reach a particular threshold, you only pay after that, right? And also businesses are of course also willing to pay beyond that particular point because they see value beyond a certain aspect, right? So whether it is cookie data, whether it is even your CRM, right? You can kind of take something that's SaaS based, get something started with, and then evolve over time. It also kind of gives you a good grip on what kind of technology you really are comfortable with and what's actually adding value. Start with one that kind of offers you and also has a large scale and good reputation, because changing technologies also is not very easy. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's something really. Thank you so much, Beverly, for this, and thank you all of you. So let me quickly summarize. Data, geo, oil. Data is the new oil. Point number one. Point number two, know your customer. Point number two, three, try and differentiate your business. And today, the way of differentiation can only happen when you know your customer well. Then how do you know your customer? Look at three areas. I see a lot of people using CRM and not leveraging and exploiting it, and I have been personally monitoring that in the small and medium sized business, or even the mid to large size business. So please leverage and exploit your CRM. Try and build MDP and DMP and CDP processes if possible. See how you can start leveraging data. Start looking at working on a project basis ROI, and if I may consider that try and buy scheme or a trial and buy application, so that it's a project based thing and you get a sense of how it helps me. And definitely the last slide is one of the key things which you should take away. End of the day, it's all about customer and nobody else, and end of the day life works around him. You all are mine, and that's the way we work. Give more value, create a delight, and keep flying. That's about it. Thank you so much, Beverly. It's been a pleasure to have you. It's been really, really thankful from our side. Thanks all of us to be patient. There has been little disturbances, change of the link. I think we will not change the link for sure now from tomorrow. So tomorrow, tune in. Interesting. So not tomorrow. The next Friday, please tune in. Interesting finance sessions. We have a couple of interesting people talking about it. And thank you. Have a lovely evening. Thank you, all of you. Bye-bye.